It's still a bit more competitive. We have a lot of people that are also grinding the RCQ season because it is Pioneer season. So we're excited to see a lot of different types of decks, both meta and non-meta decks.
Yeah, so it looks like we probably have to transition into gamer now because I think we're a little bit late.
Tiny bit late.
Yeah, so it looks like game is a little bit late here. Oh, so it looks like playthrough cam is having some problem.
Yeah, so it looks like we are going to wind up having Tyler on the left-hand side is going to be playing Mono Red or Red Deck Wins, whereas Ruin on the right-hand side is going to be playing Greasefang with a little bit of a twist. This is actually an Esper Greasefang list, so not going to be seeing the Grizzly salvages that you're used to seeing, but you'll still see some Flying Angels and Parhelions kind of popping up from time to time. However, Tyler looks like, as Red Deck Wins does, has already gotten ahead on the board, has been able to put out a Monastery Swiss Spear that has a counter from that flipped Kumano already, and is going to be able to start dealing some damage over to Rune's life total. I believe as we get the life totals updated, Rune is going to be currently at going down here from this attack to 11 compared to the 18 that Tyler is on, just from shocking himself with these Ramadan runes.
So it looks like we finally get Rune's player cam back online. It's a little bit different. He's going to go down to 8 here. So it looks like the current board slate for Mono Red is just very, very favored here.
Yeah, it looks like that 7 damage coming across here, and it looks like a Faithful Mending is going to come out from Rune, so gaining 2 extra life off of that Faithful Mending, and then drawing 2 cards and needing to discard 2. So let's see if there's any key things like a Parhelion or that Sky Sovereign or both going into the graveyard.
So it looks like the calculating damage here. Trying to figure out. So I think Rune's down to 3. So actually, there's 1 turn away from lethal here. Red Dead looks like it's winning, like intended. So we have a draw into a Darkslick Shores, and not too sure what that card is. What is that card, Tom?
Well, we got Greasefang animating a Parhelion, going to be crewing it. That means that we're going to get 2 4/4 Flying Angels coming across, in addition to the 5/5 First Striker. Most importantly here for Rune, these Angels are vigilant and flying, so they are going to be able to block the 2 attackers that Tyler actually has on board still, which means that this thing's not quite dead yet.
Yeah. Greasefang is a really amazing card to see. So Tyler Fox can go down to 4. So this game is just flipped on right over its head.
Yep, this is a very key draw. Wizard's Lightning off the top.
Wow! The top deck from Tyler, and that's already game number 1 done.
Oh man, doesn't even need to have a wizard on the side to reduce the mana cost of that with the 3 mana left available. Still enough life, even with the Ramadan Ruins ping if he needed it. Did have a mountain there, but still, that's the power of Red Deck Wins. When you thinks it's counted out, it just completely top decks a burn spell, and then boom, there you go.
Yeah, so what's the expected sideboard for Greasefang going into Red Deck Wins?
So with the Esper Greasefang list, there's usually 2 styles of the deck. Now there's one that tries to play a little bit more of a mid-range style, and then there's more of a control style. Main deck, you have things in the control version like Stubborn Denial. You'll have potentially some things that are card draw spells like Consider, to try to be getting your card advantage in hand while binning the things from the top of your library that you want to reanimate, like the Parhelion we saw Ruin putting into play on that turn there. However, the mid-range style is a bit more creature-heavy. You're going to be seeing things like Rafine's Informant. You're going to be seeing things like Evangel to get the draw discard effect to kind of do the same exact thing. And I'm very interested to see if Rune has decided to put Picklock Prankster in their list, because Picklock Prankster is going to be something very powerful that we usually see out of the Phoenix decks. From the sideboard, though, I'm looking at if there's any Thought Seizes in the main deck from the Esper Greasefang deck. Those are probably going away. I do think that keeping something like Duress and bringing that in against a spell-heavier version of Red Deck Wins could be a potential plan. And then if there's any sort of life gain things on the side of Rune's deck, that's 100% coming in. Maybe extra copies of Faithful Mending that aren't in the main deck, or potentially just some extra life linkers to kind of clog up the board.
So what's Tyler's chance going into this game number 2 to potentially steal it on the draw here? Because I know play draw is very dependent for the mono red deck usually.
Yeah, it's a little more play draw dependent. However, the deck is still pretty fast. It's not putting 15 power onto the board quickly or 13 power onto the board as quickly as possible fast, but it still can go under the list of Greasefang if Ruin stumbles at all. What I'm expecting from Tyler's side of the board is things to prevent the life gain that he knows is in Ruin's deck. I wouldn't be surprised to see extra Raptors coming in. I wouldn't be surprised to see some extra burn spells to kind of go over the top like we saw in game 1, where they were able to kind of burn them out even though the Greasefang combo was on the table. And I think you're just kind of going low and steady against this Esper Greasefang list.
A little bit unfortunate that in game number 1 we did miss the first few turns.
Yeah, well,
but,
you know, we had to try to get some things online, and unfortunately Twitch wasn't cooperating with us.
Yeah, unfortunately Twitch did not like us at all when we initially started.
We have 4 rounds of Pioneer still to go, and this is only round 1. So Tyler is up a game, which means that the mono red deck is going to be on the draw. So Ruin here still shuffling up. Not sure if they decide to mulligan or if this is going to be just their first draw of the game, but we do have to see. One thing I do want to see from the mono red deck is not stopping that proactivity. Game number 1, there was a Kumano into a Monastery Swiftspear to put the pressure on early on turn 3, in addition to the backup spells that were coming out of the list. So I do want to keep seeing pressure plays like that. On the draw, it might not be quick enough, so I do know that Tyler's probably going to be keeping up some form of removal in their hand in order to deal with a Resolve Greasefang on curve.
So, as I'm not an avid Pioneer, it looks like Ruin's gonna go down to 5.
Yeah,
that's a little bit brutal on the play here. I think Tyler's keeping his 5 is keeping his 7.
I mean, if Ruin's hand is something along the lines of land, 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 Greasefang, Faithless Mending, you could still win.
Yeah, I was yesterday. Yeah, Greasefang, not a very common card you see, huh, in Pioneer.
I mean, it's a common card that I saw because I very much so enjoyed sleeping this card up. However, Greasefang isn't as popular as it used to be. I know the Abzan version at Pro Tour Murders at Karlov Manor, they changed a couple things around from the Vessel of Nascency version. Some were running Kaya, some were running Sentinel, the Nameless City. These cards to kind of get board state advantage and play more of a grindy mid-range style versus this Esper deck that might be a little more controlling.
Yeah, so it's like Rune's gonna keep a 5. We're gonna play a tap Holophon immediately. Tyler here, play land with Soul Scour Mage. One of the better starts you can have, definitely on mono red.
This is not bad either, because this makes all of the play with fires as long as that Soulscar Mage is alive. If Greasefang hits the battlefield, it can't crew a Parhelion correctly if it doesn't have 4 power. And Soulscar Mage using -1/-1 counters for those burn spells will be a way to shrink Greasefang down enough to make it a non-threatening play.
Oh, light up the stage from Tyler. I love light up the stage so much.
There's that play with fire and a rending volley. That is a clean answer to Greasefang face up on the table here. If Rune was going to be doing any sort of draw discard shenanigans here, like this Faithless Mending we see coming out of their hand, this will be a perfect heads-up answer to that Greasefang. Now Rune has the tough decision of, do I just play my Greasefang into this face-up removal? Do I wait for it to go away and see if there's another burn spell in hand? A lot of choices to be made here, because Tyler also has the agency of just playing play with fire end of turn, scrying to fix his draw for the next phase, and dealing 2 damage to Rune's face.
Oh, it looks like Rune does have a Fatal Push in hand, so I think Tyler, I think it's more than enough to try to stabilize his board state here. So you have, what, Player Fire with, I'm not sure the other card is, but Player Fire's gonna hit. You go, bring Rune down back to 19. Tyler's now gonna draw. Looks like there's another land here.
I think that's the Scry.
Oh, sorry, the Scry.
Sorry. This rending volley that he has until the end of this turn to cast, so it's probably not going to do anything with Rune not having anything on the field.
Yeah. So, looks like it'll be a mountain here. Looks like
this from Tyler. Just a side note, mismatching basics.
Mismatching basics into the new Boogeyman, the Pioneer Slick Shot show off.
Yeah, Slick Shot is definitely something that has made these mono red, Boros, and Gruul aggressive decks a lot more powerful. Of course, having pseudo prowess is great when it gets +2 instead of +1. The flying evasion is great, but it is going to eat that fatal push you mentioned from Rune's hand.
Rune now gonna go down to 18.
Just a bop of 1.
Yeah, it's about for 1.
Now I'm interested to see if Rune actually has the Greasefang in hand, because he did discard. They did discard the Parhelion.
Yeah.
Over
So
there.
I think So Rune is gonna have the Greasefang out. Comes out. I think it's a Wizard Lightning Tyler hand. Wizard Lightning to come out on the Greasefang. Now Rune only has 1 card in hand here, and top deck. Well, basically in top deck mode against his red deck.
If Runes is running something like Can't Stay Away. That is a pathway to victory here for them. And Tyler, in the meantime, though, keeping a very interactive removal heavy hand, only really getting little points of damage in here, 1 or 2, but a second light up the stage means that, again, there's going to be a lot of face-up.
Oh, double skill with the Krivix? That's a lot of damage potentially coming out. There's no reason not to. Just send it out, hit face, bring Rune down to 14, and then actually gonna pass with the second one up, making sure potentially have a removal for another Greasefang coming out.
Yeah, like I said, we already see a Wizard's Lightning in Tyler's hand as well, so that's just a clean answer to the Greasefang. Any play with fires will also shrink it thanks to the Soulscar Mage on the battlefield. So Tyler not putting up the pressure we'd expect from the mono red deck, but still in a pretty commanding position here, whereas Rune draws a land for the turn, puts it down onto the battlefield, so still not a lot of action, but still some time, because that right now there's 4 face-up damage on the field, unless Tyler wants to pay full price for that Skewer the Critics.
Starting the combat, gonna hit. Now Skewer the Critics is now online, gonna bring June down to 13. Is there another lineup stage? It's another one! How many lineup stages does Tyler get? The fact that this deck's able to dig is a bit crazy. It looks like a Kumado's only come out from one of the hits, and then a land as well.
More importantly, that is a Ruminant Ruins. I can obviously speak. A Ruminant Ruins coming out here from Tyler means that that's another face-up burn spell with 5 mana online here.
Kumano coming out a little bit late, but I do think, in my personal opinion, Kumano is probably one of the best cards in the mono red deck.
Kumano's in this really great spot where it gives you an exile effect against Phoenix. That's one thing. It gives you a 2/2 body with haste. And it is going to be able to, of course, pump up the creature that Tyler plays next turn if he has one in his hand. So we are running down low on cards in hand from Tyler. In addition to Rune, actually that Faithful Mending going to wind up drawing 2, discarding 2, gaining 2 life. Very powerful effect here to dig. We saw multiple lands going into Rune's graveyard, so really trying to find an effect to reanimate one of those artifacts.
Rune here now with a tough decision to trying to decide like what to play on hand, asking Tyler how many cards in hand.
Potential signal here that there could be a Greasefang or Can't Stay Away from Rune's side, just debating if there's extra removal. Ooh. Lively Dirge, that's a newer one. So instead of the Can't Stay Away, this is going to be reanimating the Greasefang from the graveyard for a little bit extra mana, the Lively Dirge. But there is that Wizard's Lightning that we saw coming out from Tyler, so Rune unfortunately going to have that Greasefang taken away for the second time.
So that Wizard's Lightning did become huge. So Lively Dirge is the new card that came out in Outlaws to the Junction. One of the... I don't think I've ever seen this card before.
This is a card that I've thought about brewing with for a while. As you can tell, it's a spree card, so you have a modal choices to make. And the second mode that was chosen here by Rune was to return up to 2 creatures with total mana value 4 or less from their graveyard to the battlefield, which puts that Greasefang back into play, but still the Wizard's Lightning, just a perfectly clean answer. And now we see even Tyler just getting super aggressive with his mana base, doesn't think that Rune has anything they can do here, swings him with the Den of the Bugbear, in addition to that Soulscar Mage. So we get a 1/1 Goblin. I don't believe any other spells have been cast this turn, so that's just going to be 5 damage coming across to Rune's face. So that's going to bring them down to 6. There is the Faithless Mending in the graveyard, so that is going to wind up being something that could be flashed back to gain an additional 2 life, but it does cost 3, so if they find a Greasefang off of that, they also need an untapped land in order to do Faithless Mending, Faithful Mending into Greasefang to reanimate.
Rune here needs an amazing top deck here to potentially steal this game away. Oh, it looks like a land into a Consider. Okay. So it looks like we're digging. Surveil.
Goes for the Consider.
Gonna bend the bit of Triumph. What? Oh, it's not Faithful Mending. So it's Faithful Mending. We're gonna keep him maybe alive for a little bit longer.
Definitely keeps Rune alive this turn, but it also means that anything they draw is going to be discarded, because there's no cards in hand here. So that is kind of milling things away. So finding a Greasefang is actually not great here, and thankfully for Rune, they don't. So that's just a gain 2 life here. And now there's 3 mana available, so you could flashback Faithful Mending, or you could wait for your actual draw phase if there's no lethal threat on the battlefield here.
So Kumala is going to flip here. It looks like another top deck of Soulscar Mage, but I think this might be lethal for Tyler here.
I believe with this Den of the Bugbear activation, there's going to be 3, 4, 5 from the Goblins, 6, 7, 8 exactly. So flashbacking this Faithful Mending is actually going to cost 1 life because of that Kizukoyos on the side of Rune. So they'll go down to 7, up to 9, living at 1 HP.
So damage. How much? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8 damage exactly. We'll Rune flashback the Faithful Mending here. We'll flash it back.
That's the play. Basically, the only one.
Go down to 7.
We're hoping for Rune that you don't discard your Greasefang.
That's for sure.
And if you do...
Oh, it's like a Mending a Toxic Deluge. Not the worst.
That's a Tainted Indulgence and a Faithful Mending. So another 2 ways to draw discard. So now Rune has 1 HP, and then is left with top deck here.
Oh, it looks like a top deck of land here.
That's fine, because there's that Faithful Mending in the graveyard. So flashback Faithful Mending, reanimate Greasefang.
Oh. Okay, so it looks like... Okay, good games.
This Rune doesn't have anything they think they can do, so that's going to be Tyler taking them around 2-0.
Yeah, really quick 2-0. Like, starting us off.
Yeah, that was something that, a little unexpected on the draw from the mono red deck specifically. That was mono red, like I said, going to be very, very fast and very, very capable of getting these explosive starts. But what we saw in that specific game was Tyler kind of knowing that Greasefang was the only real threat from the Esper version of this deck, keeping a hand with plenty of removal. Even if the clock was really slow, you knew that they had a longer game if the Greasefangs were off the table.
Yeah, impressive play from Tyler on the draw. Just keep a handful into action. I think you're just fine.
Yeah, and that's something that these red decks kind of are underrated for. I mean, obviously, everybody's been really talking about Slickshot Show Off.
Yeah.
Because that is the card that kind of revitalized the Algro archetype in Pioneer in general. It's the bane of most of our existences for people not playing red decks.
Yeah.
I mean, I usually put the Waste Not deck. I know you're a mill enthusiast, and even though we have Fatal Pushes, there's only so many that we can have before that Slickshot really connects.
Slickshot, I guess, what really has been like with like a lot of these like red decks is like, you can be behind, but if a Slickshot just sticks, you can just come back out of nowhere.
Yeah, the haste on that creature is very important for the matchup, but there's that underrated side of the red deck that we saw that game where you're not a control deck, obviously.
Yeah.
But you have answers to basically every single creature threat in the format, especially when you have something like that Soulscar Mage on the battlefield that Tyler had. It wasn't super relevant because all of his spells did 3 damage, but if you have Play with Fires, you have Shocks, you have Stomps maybe from a Bone Crusher Giant, that is going to be something that can shrink down those Greasefangs. It's going to be something that can shrink down Sheoldreds in combat and just be able to kind of give the deck a little bit of extra reach that you might not be used to seeing from those red style of decks, unless maybe you came from Modern, because Soulscar Mage, Monastery Swiftspear, they've kind of been in that format for forever.
Yeah, we're basically playing Modern right now. I mean, we always saw Swiftspear, Soulscar Mage, and then I guess the only thing different is Commando.
I mean, yeah, you don't have the Commando, but you're going to be seeing plenty of Slickshot Show-Offs there as well.
Yeah.
But from the Esper Greasefang list, I'm a little sad that we didn't get to see a little bit more of it. I do know it looked like that style was a little bit more of the controlling style. We had a lot of those card draw spells. We saw Consider in the list, and then the Lively Dirge is kind of like the tutor package, because that first part of Lively Dirge lets you search your library for something and put it into the graveyard. And then if you are able to pay the spree cost, you order of operations on the card. So you search your library first, put thing in the graveyard, then you get to reanimate it from the graveyard. So in theory, you could bin a Parhelion, bin a Greasefang. You don't care about putting a Parhelion into play because Greasefang is going to do that. So that basically gives you a secondary reanimation. So it's like a Zombify with extra steps to help you put things in the graveyard. And it's really taken the place in these more controlling versions of those Can't Stay Aways and some of those lower cost reanimation spells that were strictly limited to Greasefang, because that's a mana 4 or less for Lively Dirge, so you could just pull a Sheoldred out of your graveyard with that.
Yeah, so